Thanks for joining in and being part of this very exciting session on digital economy and smart living. I hope everyone is keeping safe and healthy. Uh, First of all, I would like to thank Succeed Group for organizing this webinar. For many of you who don't know about Succeed, I think Succeed Innovation is a SEBI registered AIF fund. It is an angel fund too. It has grown out of Succeed Angel Network and IIIT Hashtag Ventures. It is a $15 million USD fund primarily focused on early stage startups, which are primarily focusing on deep tech and solving tech innovations, which are really solving the problems of this country. Before starting this session, let me introduce myself. My name is Udit Goyal, and I lead the strategy for Cisco India and SAC. I'm also an active angel investor, being part of Succeed Group for the last couple of years, also invested in a couple of early stage startups. Guys, before we start today's session, I think I would like to mention what we are going to discuss today. Today's session is primarily based on the report that is published by Succeed on digital economy and smart living. In today's session, we will be discussing on the recent and the future trends that we are seeing in the digital economy space, primarily in the areas of freelance economy, media tech, and the retail tech. We will also be discussing how the startups are navigating the present challenges and the trends and making sure that they're building for the future. Last but not the least, we will also be discussing which are the sub-segments which will be becoming the next big unicorn in the digital economy. Now, if I talk about India as a country, we have more than 700 million people who are on internet right now. We have more than 600 million people who are using smartphones. But still, less than 20% of those smartphone users are transacting digitally. So if you see the three main focus areas where a lot of startups and enterprises are focusing on in digital economy are the first one being how we can make sure that digital will become more relevant for these users so that they can transact more, which is what we are seeing in the fintech space or the retail tech space. And the second focus area is around how we can make sure that the next billion users, the remaining 500 to 600 million users who are not online, how we can bridge the gap to make them online. That's where you can see a lot of work happening on the vernacular side, a lot of work happening on the assisted digital side, a lot of work happening on the typical bridging a digital versus physical gap like Spice Money or Nikki.ai. And the third focus area is primarily around how we can help businesses in India to come online. So what we have seen is these are the three focus areas where a lot of companies are focusing on. However, if we see currently, in the last few years, the segment which has done really well on the digital side of things are primarily in the retail space, the fintech space, and the edtech space. What we have seen in the last 2 years, especially primarily due to pandemic, a lot of new digital segments are becoming more and more relevant and more pervasive throughout the country. For example, education technology has really picked up in the last 1 or 2 years, healthcare technology, media technology, and not least the gig economy. Now, if you see the recent report that Succeed has released on the digital economy and smart living, this report says that there will be an increased focus or increased demand of freelancers and experts in the gig economy. And what we will see is the market will also evolve from a less skilled jobs to a more specialized jobs. Gone are the times where we were hiring CFOs and legal officers in the company. Now we have CFOs available as a service. We have legal available as a service. We'll also see that marketplaces will evolve, not being a normal matchmaking marketplace, they're also moving into a managed services place. For example, Pepper Content, right? How they're connecting creators to the organizations and they're creating the end-to-end flow by connecting the producers to the consumers. Now, if I talk about the media tech sector, I think everybody knows that India is really going well on the content side with the proliferation of the cheap data and the cheap smartphones available across the country. The digital has contributed more than 30% in the last year. It has become the second largest. Obviously, it was the second largest, but now it has become by far the second largest sector contributing to the advertising space in this country. There are a lot of innovations happening in the media tech space too. The areas where innovation is happening is primarily on the content creation side. We are seeing a lot of localized content happening in this country. We are seeing a lot of personalized content also happening in this country. And we are seeing innovation happening on the distribution side too. Just to give you an example, we all talked about books Then Kindle happened. Now we're all talking about audiobooks. Although it's just an initial phenomena, but you never know. In the next 2 years, everybody is only talking about audiobooks. Now, the next sector, which is also becoming more and more relevant and which is very critical for our country, is the SMB segment. We have more than 63 million SMBs in this country. And still, if I talk about the percentage of SMBs who are digital, we're still less than single digit. Although I'll not say we have not done well in the last few years, a lot of SMBs have become digital, but still, I think there's a lot of headroom to improve on that side. That's where we are seeing a lot of startups are focusing on how we can digitize these SMBs. Now we know the benefits that digitization bring to these SMBs. Number one, these digitization will help SMBs to increase their reach. Number two, they will also help them to improve their efficiency, to improve their operational efficiency. And the number three, which was not a phenomenon a few years back, digital is also helping these SMBs to go global. Recently in the Amazon as Sambhav event, they announced that they've already crossed $3 billion of exports from the SMBs in India. We'll see this space is becoming more and more hotter. A lot of startups will be focusing on how we can help these SMBs to go digital and also help these SMBs to go and cross the borders. We'll discuss about some startups which are doing interesting work in this space. Now, if I talk about the last trend that I want to talk about today is the subscription economy. I think there was a saying in the last 100 years, if you see about the innovation in the business model, subscription economy or the subscription services is the only business model which has been innovated over the last 100 years, which is entirely customer focused. Otherwise, if you see in the last 100 years, every business model was partly customer focused or partly business focused. This is the only business model which is entirely customer focused. Now what we have seen is customer experience management is one area which is becoming more and more important. It is not limited to only enterprises. It is also pervasive across all types of organizations, including SMB. Of late, I think you all have heard about the recent news of unicorns. We have already crossed the number of, I think, half a dozen. No, I'm not sure. No, not half a dozen. I think more than a dozen startups which has become unicorns by this year only. This month only, we have more than 8 startups which have become unicorn. As per Zinnov, they're projecting that we will have more than 50 plus unicorns in this country by the end of year 2021. In my view, it is just a trailer. Picture abhi baki hai. And to discuss what picture is baki, I would like to invite all our interesting panel of experts, industry experts and startup founders who will help us understand how these startups and the industries are navigating in the present trends and the future growth trends in the digital economy. So let me introduce all the panelists. So before I start, I think I would like to welcome Shashank Sahani. Shashank is the Global Video Services Director at Google. He is a transformation leader with a solid track record of driving growth and success in building customer-centric and high-performance teams. Before joining Google, he led sales at Dell and Oracle for international markets. Welcome, Shashank, to the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shashank. Next panelist we have is Santosh Thota. Santosh is the founder and CEO of SmartBot. It's a startup which was founded in year 2015. It is an AI-driven conversational chatbot, building platform for lead generation, customer support, automation across multiple channels like website, mobile apps, WhatsApp, and other social media platforms. Welcome, Santosh, to the session.
Thank you.
Okay. Next panelist that we have is Kunal Abhishek. Kunal Abhishek is the co-founder at Stargate Club. Stargate Club enables both the sellers and buyers by allowing them to shop and recommend curated merchandise of lifestyle products at factory prices. He also co-founded a product startup called Native 5 in 2011, which later got acquired by Myntra. He was also the vice president for cross-border business at Paytm and AVP at products at Myntra. Welcome, Abhishek, to the club.
Thank you, Udit. Thank you.
Next panelist that we have is Swaroop Nanda. Swaroop is the founder and publisher in chief at Pencil. Pencil is a startup which is helping writers to publish their books for free by distributing them globally as paperbacks and ebooks. Basically, he's building a platform for all the creators. Swaroop had also founded LeadStart Publishing in 2010 and had also worked for the National Geographic Channel. Welcome, Sarup.
Thanks, Udit. Now, lovely to be here.
Okay. And the last panelist that we have is Nikhil Hegde. Nikhil is the co-founder and CEO of 6Degree. Founded in 2015, 6Degree is a leading retail tech SaaS platform, primarily focusing on the growing fashion and lifestyle industry. 6Degree is also the largest fashion talent platform through its fashion network. Nikhil comes with over 15 years experience in the telecom and consulting industry across international geographies. Welcome, Nikhil, to the panel.
Thanks, Udit. Good to be here.
Okay, so without further ado, let me start the session. Just a small thing for all the audience who are there on the Facebook Live. Guys, please be interactive. Whatever questions you have, whatever comments you have, please put it on the Facebook chat. We have our team which will make sure that all those questions, all those comments will be shared by the panelists, so they can also make sure that they're addressing that during the discussion. Okay, so let me start the discussion now. So I'm just starting this discussion with a generic question for all the panelists. What is one trend that you guys see in the digital economy, especially in the segments gig economy, media tech, and retail tech? Maybe I'll start with you, Shashank.
No, firstly, thanks for kicking this off, Udit, and it's great to be here. I think and you kind of covered a little bit of it already in your intro as part on the media tech side, but I think the big one that we're seeing definitely is in a good way, the proliferation of a lot of content. And I think that what we are beginning to see very clearly, which probably was not so much the case over the last couple of years, but definitely has got, probably one good positive out of the pandemic has been that it's got people a lot more closer to video in a way. And therefore, the relevance of content is that much higher. Just to give you a statistics, about 85% increase in the total viewership on YouTube year on year globally that has taken place. And there are a few more trends. We'll talk about that later, more specifically to media tech. But I think just more broadly, the viewer intent at a very fundamental level, the leveraging video as a platform for different needs of a user, I think has seen a significant increase over the last year. And I only think that will go higher up as we go through this journey.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is video is the next big trend, definitely.
It is a huge trend, and especially in APAC, I will say, and India, of course, is one of the at the forefront of it. Also, thanks to the democratization of network and technology that is taking place, it's only helping this trend, right? And so, therefore, the usage increase and the relevance of that rather is gone up significantly, over the last. And I think it's a very critical trend to be aware of, because it's got a lot of different elements or dimensions that will play out across the entire value chain on video consumption.
Sure. Okay. Moving on to Santosh. Santosh, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. Thanks for the opportunity. Yes, I think I'll start from where Shashank left. I think yes, video is definitely the biggest trend happening in the media tech, and especially the video streaming really got steroid during this initial phase of the lockdown that is imposed worldwide. And apart from that unique content, I think people prefer now OTT platforms, as everyone knows, majorly I think because of the ad-free experience. And especially, so I think the media and entertainment will definitely unlock the new technology frontiers led by, I think, AR and VR. I think this is being most of our personalized content is seeing the trend in the recent past, especially the millennials and then the generation Z, people actually looking for the content personalized to their taste. I think there's a lot of this opens up a new opportunities, especially for AI and ML algorithms to build such recommendation engines to predict the user behavior. And I think also the people are actually looking for omni-channel experience, right? Especially brands not only present in the very traditional communication channels like email, phone, or social media, but they would like to be present in a lot of popularly used platforms, even WhatsApp, to communicate to their customers. So I think these are the few things that I could think of and pull off. So I think yes. So these are all definitely adding value to both a consumer and the businesses to bring overall value to the ecosystem.
I think interesting. I think what you're saying is it's not only the consumers or even the businesses are making sure that they're becoming more and more relevant to those consumers who are going more and more digital. Right?
Exactly.
Good. Moving on to Nikhil.
Yeah, thanks for that. So my personal take here is, see, India is a growing economy, and one thing which can never take away from this country is consumer demand. It will only keep increasing, and because of the proliferation of data here, and data is being so cheap here, people are spending a lot more screen time today. Be it your mobile phones or be it your smart TV. So and there are several companies working in this space, to kind of personalize what consumers want to see. But at the same time, the most important part here is to bridge the gap between your supplier and the consumer. So, as you mentioned, 63 billion SMBs here, but are they really digital enough to reach, the 130 crore people here in the country? No. So I think a lot of companies in the retail tech space have this opportunity here to kind of bridge that gap between the demand and supply. And it's a huge, huge opportunity for this entire country now.
So basically what you're mentioning is the MSME would be definitely the one big trend that is happening with the digitalization piece.
Absolutely.
And retail will definitely play a big role because they contribute a major part of this SMB space for sure. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Moving on to Swaroop.
Hey Udit, hi. Yeah. Where we come in as Pencil and broadly see the consumer internet for content moving to is from the gig economy where that particular human being was standardized enough that you don't need to know who your driver is, you don't need to know who your plumber is, you just use it as an app. From there, that person becoming important and creators actually being empowered to generate revenue and get independent, have a differential price point for differential services. That non-standardization is coming in with the creator economy. With Pencil, we are enabling that space and see that prolifically growing. That has been a consistent trend coming in with a lot of other places as well. Where from the media network space, which used to initially supplement distribution, be it YouTube, be it Twitter, be it so many other places where that space was coming in. Then there were a whole lot of creator tools that had come in, be it Canva, be it Figma, be it InVideo, etc. Now they are coming in together. So the advent of creator networks is happening, and that's the space that we are also trying to cater to in the writing segment. So to give the differences, say YouTube you could use for distribution but not for content creation, and with TikTok you can do the content creation as well as the distribution. So that's a space that Pencil is, and that's a space that creators are finding usefulness.
So I think basically what I'm hearing from you is the way YouTube has democratized the content creation piece, right? And even I would say distribution piece also.
Only distribution, yeah. Distribution and audience building, YouTube has definitely enhanced. Right. And the next generation that we see are creative networks where creation plus audience building together is where the media tech space is evolving.
Okay, so what you're saying is creation plus distribution would be something which will come together in the future. Okay, and I'm sure Shashank will also mention something on that front, because coming from Google, he would definitely be playing a big part on the other side of things. Okay, I'll come back to you, Shashank, on this thing later. Moving on to Kunal.
Yeah, thanks, Udit. I'll just specifically touch on retail tech. So there are reports from Bain, McKinsey that are suggesting that social commerce will be about $20 to $25 billion industry by 2025 and $60 to $70 billion by 2030. So I believe that India will move towards a state where hundreds of thousands of influencers or key opinion leaders will play a major role. They will help distribute the products and services instead of just a few influencers and celebrities. And we've seen this phenomena in China, and now we are seeing it in markets like Indonesia, and it won't be long before it comes to India. So like Swaroop mentioned, and Shashank said that, I think there's an evolution from a gig economy to more like a creator or passion economy as it is now being called.
So I think what you're indicating is social commerce will become a new norm, right? But I think we show what we've heard all the time, right?
Sure, yes. But more from gig to a creator economy where you are allowing the individuals to express their own individuality. I think that will be going
Okay.
forward.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is on one side you will see a lot of things happening on the content creation piece, right, and the distribution piece, which I think Swaroop was mentioning. And the second thing what you're saying is from a commerce side also that same phenomena will happen, but it's primarily linked to the passion economy piece, right? What people are more passionate about, they'll be making sure that those things they'll be building. It can be content, it can be something else also, and there'll be platforms which will be helping them to make sure how they can scale from a distribution perspective, right?
That's it. Yes.
Okay, good. So interesting thoughts, guys. So let me move on to similar thoughts, going deep into some sectors. So let me come back to you, Shashank. I think we discussed that in the previous question, right? Google acquired YouTube 15 years back, right, for $1.65 billion, right? And now I think with whatever recently published report that I think Google shared, it is generating $15 billion business, right, for Google, right? I think amazing acquisition by you guys, obviously globally. Now, as I think you already mentioned, right, video has become the norm nowadays, right? And when I was reading a report, India has become the #1 country in the world in video consumption. We are consuming 10.9 hours video every week, and we are the #1 country. We are the #3 in content consumption, digital content consumption. We're only behind, I would say, Brazil and Indonesia, right? Indonesia is #1 and Brazil #2. And we're consuming 4.6 hours every day. And with COVID being there, I'm sure this 4.6 hours will become 5.5 hours soon and will become #1 there. So I think, Shashank, you're very close to this transition. You have been in Google, you're working on the similar space. How do you see this trend is going to shape up in India as well as globally?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Udit. And I think I will try and see if I can bring all insights into maybe the next 3 or 4 minutes, because it's such a vast space within itself, right? But I will do my best to make it as succinct as possible. So let me start with the reason why video is important, or how we look at it in YouTube in our world, right? Fundamentally, it's about, providing platforms to democratize success for everyone. And I will use the word human empathy a little bit more specifically in this context, is because the beautiful thing about platforms like YouTube is that they allow a democratized platform for anyone, anywhere in the world to be successful, right? But at the same time, it also allows you as a consumer of that content to enhance your own awareness and therefore improve overall human empathy. That's a very core part of how we think about YouTube. And you're right. I mean, and I don't remember the last statistic, but I think it's close to 1 billion videos getting uploaded every few days or every few hours or whatever, right? So some insane things like that keeps happening on YouTube. And I think the monetization of that asset has only accelerated over the last 2 years in particular. As we got better in terms of how we should be leveraging YouTube from our own internal business perspective. But I'll come to that in a minute. Let me focus a little bit on the user first to start with. So let's try and understand essentially why do users even use platforms like YouTube, right? I mean, fundamentally, let's start from there. And statistics very clearly show that for YouTube, 65% of our usage is to learn new skills, right? 65% of the usage comes to learning new skills, right? About 55% is for taking help, of some way or the other. And about 50% is, to drive some kind of social commerce. And in kind of, I think Kunal was alluding to that a little bit in his opening around, how these influencers, etc., and these platforms are being used increasingly. And there are more such stats, and I can go on for a while. But let me give you a very interesting stat, right? That came through last year. Was one of the main reasons why people get onto YouTube or platforms like that is they want to be happy. Right? And let's not forget that fundamental need of a human being as to why you want to use a platform. 58% of our users who use this, especially during pandemic, felt happier when they use YouTube. Right? And then, of course, there are multiple stats about, hey, how you use YouTube, and do you use it for entertainment? Do you use it for humor or comedy? Do you use it for information, and so on and so forth? But fundamentally, people are getting there to say, hey, I want to feel better about how things are, right? And therefore, if I can do that, if I can cater that to my users, then it gets better. So that's my user. What does that mean then for a content provider? And we spoke a lot about that, right? Which basically means that we need to refocus ultimately on that user need. And therefore, my sense is that original content and its relevance will only increase with time. Which also brings a little bit of a challenge is when you have multiple players playing in this space, how do you then refocus it into what really matters for a user? And so therefore, the play of content aggregators will increase. But the relevance of content aggregators to make it really sensible, relevant to that end user, given all that I just spoke about, will increase. And therefore, I think Santosh was speaking about the power of machine learning and artificial intelligence, that will increase. So the user need, the relevance of the content, and its ultimate deployment for an end user, I think all of that needs to start. And that's a huge opportunity ahead of us, right? Because we are just scratching the tip of the proverbial iceberg, if you want to call it, right? So that's one aspect of it. And I'll spend maybe a minute, if that's okay with it, on the second side, which is what does it mean for a business, right? And how the businesses can leverage platforms like these to connect to the user. I was in conversations with multiple customers whom we engage with, and we provide solutions using our different advertising formats, for example. And and thanks to the pandemic, a lot of the traditional ways in which they were probably targeting users, or they were, building out business, and all of that has come under question, right? But fundamentally, there are a couple of things which are never going to be coming under question. One is any marketer wants to improve wants to improve market share, and two, you want to do it in the most cost-effective way. So drive efficiency and so this will never change, right? No matter which business you're sitting in. But the routes to market have suddenly changed quite a bit, where video or platforms like YouTube and our peers in the industry have suddenly taken a lot more precedence than traditional marketing platforms. So why? Because users are gravitating a lot more towards that based on exactly the needs I spoke about earlier. So therefore, it's a marketer's platform now to really leverage it well. And we have very strong tools which are available to target the user in the right way and therefore the advertising becomes that much more contextual, that much more targeted, and that much more relevant. And therefore you can drive efficiencies out of that in the right way, right? And I suppose the third one, and I'll stop after that, is basically all of this also brings a very critical challenge for platforms like YouTube, is how do you ensure user privacy? And how do you ensure that all that we do is done in the most privacy respectful way, and in a way where measurement of outcomes of any of this is not impacting the fundamental user privacy that we are all very guarded about. So these are three different dimensions of users, marketers, and advertisers from different perspectives. So that's my maybe very high level view for how I see this world playing out.
I think, Shashank, it was very interesting to know about the happiness quotient, right?
Yes.
It's good to measure the happiness quotient when people are coming on YouTube.
But isn't that amazing? If you think about it, right? And it's so beautiful to even think about. Like, why would you want to do something if you don't make your user happy, right? And in the case of platforms like YouTube, it is very fundamentally catering to the very basic need of an individual who's getting up every morning is that I want to be happy, right? And so how do you make that happen, right? So it's pretty awesome that way.
I think great to hear that. I think if I move further, right, if I see the way physical has evolved, right, the physical value chain, right, you have one side the producers, then you have the aggregators, then you have a distribution layer. But if I map the same thing on the digital side, then you have the content creation on one side, you have aggregation, then we have distribution side, right?
Yeah.
I think there is no surprise to say that aggregation is a space that you guys have already taken, leaving all the other two spaces for everyone else. And I think with that context, I'll move to the next panelist, Swaroop, who's trying to make sure that how is addressing the other part of it on the content creation as well as the distribution part. So Swaroop, creators are the new founders, right? And that's what we are seeing. And I think we discussed about in the previous question also that it's all about the passion economy, and people are looking to become more and more self-reliant, and they want to pursue their passion. That's why we're seeing a lot of creators as founders anyway. So what role does Pencil is playing for these thought leaders or the knowledge workers in this creator economy? Considering we have so many options available, okay, I would say YouTube in some sense is also an option. Twitter is an option. Quora is an option. Medium, or maybe I would say latest Kindle direct publishing, right, is also an option. So where you guys are playing and what value you are bringing to this ecosystem? Swaroop.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, thanks for the question, Udit, and I'll touch upon something that Shashank mentioned and your input on it to begin with, right? On what digital is, right? In the publishing space, the space got digitized or took to digitization much earlier. So Kindle is 15 years old now, right? But what never changed is there are about 300 ebook retailers, and every larger player has an ebook retailing part. But they operate that exactly the way the brick and mortar stores were operating. Okay, just in a digitized way. I'll explain what I'm saying. When an author, for example, would sell a book through Crossword, right, as a retail outfit, he had no clue of who his reader is. The content creator had no clue of who the reader is. When that happened on Kindle, on Google Play, on Apple Books, on any platform, the same phenomena applies. What I'm trying to say is all the other retailing platforms have digitized the product, which means instead of just, it's a scan of the physical product in a lousy way, right? But it is not a digital ecosystem yet, right? So that is one part that Pencil changes, where it becomes the first global platform to enable authors and writers to see how consumption or how readers are consuming their book. Not only that, when they see a particular cliff happening, at reader interest, say, for example, 100 people have started reading a book and 80 people are disappearing at chapter 3, right? The creator can understand that cliff, stop distribution, rewire the product, and just re-release distribution, and Pencil will distribute that globally. It is not only on Pencil. So, for creators, what we've built is you are able to analyze consumption, you are able to improve, and you are able to sell globally. So once on Pencil, you are also publishing together at 400 plus platforms in ebook and paperback. And also the subsequent version selling out of, say, Milan, Italy on Amazon.it in a paperback format will also be the new version. So that is the core at Pencil. As in, I spoke about digitize a truly digital experience instead of a digitized experience. Second, you start owning your audience on Pencil. So you can actually build your profile there. Now, additionally, what we have provided to creators or our writers is not only books, because they will create books in in longer durations of time, right? You cannot create a book every day. You'll take a few months, you'll take a few years, right? So in between that time, how do they manage to engage with their audiences and continually better their monetization? So we've enabled shorts, we've enabled micros, which are like posts. So all of that to help the creator engage better with the audiences. Yeah. And Pencil is a part of the creator network economy. So it will help you with building your audience. It will give you phenomenal tools to create, analyze, improve your product, right? Those are the three core differences between Pencil and every other platform that exists globally. We filed in for patent. You've done all of that. And so those are the differences, but I'll tell you the genesis of where this comes in, as you being an investor, and Shashank also being partially an investor, partially a big business leader. The creative economy, I'm putting in three buckets here. So books, movies, music, right? And the other businesses, which are everything else, right? You would generally agree to me as an investor that in the creative bucket, when you make an investment, you would consider that as a high risk investment, right? Vis-a-vis on the other side, whether it's a SaaS product, whether it's a FMCG, furniture, whatever it could be a medium risk investment, right? I remember a quick conversation with Mr. Subrato Bagchi of Mindtree a few years back. And he told me that point in time, if a VC invests into you, it will be like a slot machine business investing into another slot machine business. What the wise man essentially said, that it is so risky that two heavy risk players can't play. And the genesis of Pencil comes in from here, where we were able to point the root of the problem being that whenever creative economy products, like the prior creative economy products like books, music, movies, whenever products are created, they have to live with that same version in perpetuity, right? If products from the other bucket would have to live in their first versions in perpetuity, they would become as risky, right? So to enable the creator economy, it is very important that data analytics, which is consumption, an ability to improvise and iterate needs to come into this bucket. So that's how we are picking up the writing space from here and moving it to the other bucket. That's what we're doing.
Okay, I think it's very, very interesting. So
thank you.
I think you mentioned about music, movies, and books, right?
Yeah.
So maybe a follow-up question from both of you, right? Sarup and Shashank, because you both belong to this media tech industry. How you guys see this democratization of movies happening? Because if I talk about the OTT players, right? Although we all talk about democratization, but actually it's still under that Pareto principle, right? Top 20% of the creators are present there, they're producing the content there, right? Now, if I say YouTube has completely democratized, but it is not in a way that it is giving you a different kind of platform. Maybe Shashank, you can add on that. So do you see any play happening on that side apart from books in this industry? Where a person are simply sitting in a tier 4 city, right? He's creating a content which is still, I know, becoming viral from Facebook and other places. But is there a way that those short documentaries can become a content which can really generate revenue for him?
I can take that question if Shashank is wanting to. So I'll tell you what we are building with Pencil that is enabling these creators from smaller cities, and it's not in video really, right? In a huge transition that has happened in the movie space and OTT space. And I've been, even prior to my entrepreneurial journey, I used to be at National Geographic Channel and lots of friends in the space. So pretty much everybody who leads, so the Netflix team is the prior Star TV team, etc. So been friends in all of that space. Something significant that has changed was in the film space, there was a formula of having a huge star and a big production house, and it would be a model for profit, right? What parallelly happened is the access to the star be it whoever, Hrithik Roshan or this person, that person, that reduced because of social media, right? So you're far more connected to that star, so to say, right, on your Instagram, on your YouTube, on your Twitter, etc., etc. So people were no longer going in to watch the movies for the star value. They were going in to watch the movie for the story value. All of a sudden, from a situation where the male star would charge almost 50% of the production fee, 50 to 87% of the production fee, and the story creators would come into 1%, 2%. We've been seeing that part growing, right? The story is becoming the new star, right? The story enables you to de-risk. And to make use of that opportunity, in the last 18 months, we've sold 8 deals, taking stories from our books to OTTs, to movie studios, right? And we've created a very new line of revenue for our creators. It doesn't answer your straight question of how do we take this tier 3 guy and get him more revenue. But I'll tell you what we've done. So we have an author who's out of Nagpur, 24-year-old, right? We've gotten him a deal at 1.1 crore on his story rights, right? Of which 50% goes to him, right? And he's a 24-year-old, right? The next version that of his story, another one, we're talking to Disney for it. So something else that's shaping up because of people's love to watch different stories. I don't know if I answered your question entirely, but it's a different space of monetization that can touch upon from the crossovers that are happening, from my space to Shashank's space and other spaces.
I think let me move to Shashank's space before I change my gears to other track. Shashank, anything from your side?
No, I think there's some great insights there coming in already, and it's amazing to see how platforms are being created for young writers like this. I mean, this was unheard of, right? I mean, just imagine. This comes back to the point that we made, right, which is about democratization of technology, etc. And it reinforces the entire point of content being critical and content taking center stage than anything else. But to specific to your question, Udit, I do see some of this consolidation taking place. My sense is maybe it's a matter of another year to 2 years where classically consolidation will start happening and we'll start getting a little bit more focused and streamlined, where right from a story creator to a platform to a user, all of that convergence will start happening. But I think we are going through a little bit of that filtration right now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let me change gears and I'll move to the next topic, which is something close to me because I'm working in the same sector, subscription economy, the SaaS play. Okay, so I'll move on to Santosh. If you talk about the global business environment right now, right, it is experiencing major shifts with the expansion of the digital economy. Gone are the days where organizations rule the market, right? So consumers are now at the forefront. Now we are talking about B2C to B, D2C models coming up. And the demand from the customers have been more personalized, digital-led, and experiences throughout their entire customer journeys. So in your view, Santosh, what kind of technologies are being adapted by the companies to make sure they're at par with the expectation of the consumer? And how exactly SmartBot is helping the companies to achieve it?
Sure. Hope you can hear me. Yes.
Santosh.
So I think, yes, rightly said, most of the companies are already realizing this shift. And I think they are making themselves a consumer-centric company, right? Because if you look at, right, a typical consumer expect a consistent and seamless access to a company and its products and services across all engagement channels, anywhere, anytime. Right, so that's forcing traditional companies to transform their business models, starting from operationals to customer experience, strategies, right? So there is a lot of things happening to kind of renovate the processes across the different places. So in response to that, I think companies are leveraging the disruptive technologies like cloud, big data, advanced analytics, and RPA, robotic process automation, IoT, AR, VR, and machine learning and artificial intelligence, of course, to transform their business model and customer experience strategy to get closer to the customers. So we at SmartBot, as an AI company, we help businesses to automate their marketing and support and any workflow automation for that matter, with all advanced technologies like NLP, speech, image processing, and of course, I mean, we built a platform which is SmartBot as a no coding platforms. So as you can see, the trend now, we are kind of, I mean, so I think most of the discussion so far happened from a consumer side. So I'll cover that more from a business side. So as we are a B2B company, so if you look at what a technological evolution happening for the businesses, so there are so many tools are coming up with no coding experience, where any layman can actually start building tools. Be it could be a chatbot, be it could be RPA tool, right? Without coding experience, with simple drag and drop. So that's a trend happening out there, and that's what we're doing. For example, if you have, if most of the businesses have no website, but just to see if you have a human agent presenting all the time and to answer all the visitors' questions and collect the lead information, it's almost possible, especially for SMEs and MSMEs, right? But the chatbot actually would help at all the time, at any scale, right? Answering all the frequently asked questions and collect the lead information and booking appointments, so on and so forth. So we actually literally seen 3 times increase in terms of the lead generation, visitor to lead generation ratio for all our customers. So using our own chatbots. And the use cases are seamless. I mean, not just limited to this, but very interesting use cases are we are solving. For example, we are working with Mahindra Logistics, where we solved a very interesting use case where their drivers actually typically, once the delivery happened, they take a receipt and then they'll upload it to their mobile app, and then there has to be a manual process to check whether the invoice is clearly visible to the human eye, and there are certain elements like stamp, signatures present or not. So there have been so much rigidity happens in that particular process. So, and it's a time taking and costly as well. So what we did, we built an AI engine which actually does automated way to check whether it's a clear image, and it has all the elements to process further. And the beauty is this all happens to a WhatsApp itself, so you don't need to have any extra app itself. Now WhatsApp is been introducing all the business APIs, so we can automate all the conversations that are there in the WhatsApp. So this enables a new opportunity because it's a it has about 2 billion active users. So it gives an opportunity for every business, small to small roadside kirana shop to a multi-million dollar company, to have a seamless communication to your consumers. And so in my opinion, I think in this COVID contactless world, it's time to go digital and automated, of course, in all the possible ways. Otherwise, I mean, you might go dark at any time. So that's my view. Yeah.
Can't agree more, Santosh, because being a user, I think consumer of Big Basket, and I have seen the kind of AI they have built in their customer care, right? Frankly, in the last 1 month, I have not interacted with anybody human, and I have got so many problems, but I was surprised to see everything has been solved automatically. It can go as simple as refund. It can be as simple as you've got the wrong product, they will replace it. Everything's happening automatically.
Right.
So I think I completely agree with you. This will be definitely a new trend for the businesses. Okay, so let me move to the next track, which is primarily Nikhil and Kunal. That's on the SMB side of things, right? How they're helping the businesses, right? And we discussed this in the earlier session also, that MSME is the backbone of Indian economy. So I think, Nikhil, with 63 million SMBs that contributing to more than 1/3 of the GDP, right? We know that they are in single digit from a adoption perspective of digital, right? And digital is helping them to increase their reach, be it locally or be it globally. How are you seeing this thing happening in your sector, the fashion and the lifestyle sector, for both SMBs as well as their customers? And how do you think 6degree is helping or enabling this?
Well, Udit, what I've seen is, a lot of SMBs generally love to cater to their own private clients, their neighborhood customers in the fashion or the lifestyle space. So generally in any other sector. But what they have failed to see is that there is life beyond their neighborhood as well. There are potential customers beyond the neighborhood. So this sector was a little bit of a laggard when it came to adopting digital. But when the unfortunate pandemic hit last year, it only catalyzed this process. So they realized the need to go digital was that much more faster. So when we introduced our retail platform for them to have a single window access, sell globally, and manage the entire business on one screen. The next big question came was, okay, done, I've done that. But now where are my customers? So which is where we also took into the second piece of the puzzle. And that's why data came in as a very important parameter here, is while more products started coming out into the digital space from a lot of homegrown brands and internet first brands, consumers start to see that it's no longer, I'll go back to Swaroop's example, the hero and story paradox, right? So the same thing here, it's not just the brand and the product, right? The comparison is very alike actually. And consumers started to see a variety of products, value for money. And at the end of the day, as shoppers, we always love to go value for money first, and then we look at everything else. At least that's a majority of the shopping that happens in India. So now these SMBs started to figure out that there are customers on all corners of India. There are customers for them globally, and the unthinkable have just happened to them. So let me give you a small story about a brand in Haryana, right? So, I mean, she just made salwars, and she just made salwars, for within her locality. After coming on with us, she suddenly realized she has customers in Canada, she has customers in New Zealand, and in her life, she had never imagined that she would sell out of Haryana, for that matter. So that's what digital has done to this entire fashion and lifestyle space. And so that's where we are kind of helping bridging the gap between personalization to a consumer. So helping brands understand what is it that their consumers are looking for, and more importantly, driving a strong voice in saying that let's avoid wastage. Let's kind of manufacture what your consumer needs. So overall, while improving their bottom lines, we're also trying to build the whole digital drive within this SMB space. That's pretty much where we are at this moment.
So I think, Nikhil, I think a very interesting story of the Haryana lady, but how you guys are helping them from an end-to-end perspective. Let's say she wants to sell Salwar Kameez to Canada client, then how you're actually enabling that?
So the data on the platform understands what is it that consumers are actually shopping. So while we match that, for example, we know that there is some section of the society or some section of the neighborhood where the consumption of that fabric or that color salwars are in huge demand. That information was never available with this brand all through their life. Now that they know that there is that area which we can be personally targeted, and we know the typical client base over there. So that's where we are helping them understand that this is your market, and that's where the platform and the data drives such information. So with more of the AI algorithms coming in, brands are becoming more connected to their consumers. So they know that if you have bought this product from me, I know that you will be recommending this to this side of a league. And that we've seen is now geography agnostic. So you could do this within your own state, or you could do this cross-border. And that's how we've helped bridge this gap today.
And I'm sure you'll be having partners to make sure take care of the end-to-end supply chain and everything, right? For the
Absolutely. Yeah, we're an ecosystem play at the end of the day. Yes.
Basically, if I want to set up my own brand, I can come on 6 Degree and make it happen, right? I can do that.
As simple as that. As simple as that.
Okay, good. So moving on to Kunal. Kunal, I think last year when COVID broke out, many new commerce companies have seen a new business models emerged, right? Some failed, some succeeded. I think one such model which we all talk about is the social e-commerce, right? We all know about Meesho, what they're doing on the social e-commerce side. So I think it has become more and more accessible to every age group and the income group across the country. Although we know that traditional e-commerce will also flourish, but social e-commerce will also find its own space, and it will also grow parallelly, especially making sure that it is finding its fan base among both sellers and buyers. So how do you see this social commerce really scaling up in India, and how you see it evolving from a technology point of view?
Sure, thanks. So yeah, it's a very interesting space to be in, retail tech. There are a lot of players, different business models, and you're right. But I basically talked about two things. So one was around there being hundreds and thousands of influencers. The second was around the evolution from evolution to a passion economy. What I feel is this shift will decentralize sales and marketing to a large extent. And brands will really have to effectively market to influencers. And because these influencers are passionate about these brands, once influencers come on board, they will start acting as evangelists to the brand. Hence, again, I believe there'll be huge influx of new micro brands in India, catering to a lot of latent demand. And Nikhil has talked about that as well. From a technology point of view, I think it'll be important for players to serve content, in case of retail tech, more catalog, with a lot of context. And we've talked about personalization, but I don't think it'll be personalization at a very basic level. One has to have a very deep understanding of the persona and style of the influencers and their network. The second thing I believe is that the social commerce players in this space will need to build more tools that will make it easy for the influencers to increase their network and recommend or sell products to their network. And the defensibility of your network basically lies in the tools that you've built. So you've seen TikTok and how it has evolved, whereas YouTube was already there. So I think it's largely because of the tools that is supporting them. And lastly, I believe there'll be also technology tools that will arm the brands or suppliers with precise marketing tools that are directed at influencers. So these are the things that I feel will come up in the couple of years to come.
So Kunal, just help me understand, right? We all know about Meesho, what they are doing in the e-commerce, social e-commerce side, right? So what exactly your company is doing to help that?
See, what we are doing is we are a social commerce platform with a very strong focus on supply. We have access to thousands of styles from brands and factories that we are connected with. And when I say connected, we are connected at a very system level. It's either an API integration or these factories use our panels. And most of these factories are overseas. What we do is we curate relevant styles for Indian customers. And then on the other side, we have influencers who can use these styles or this catalog to create their own stores. So we provide them with tools to network with each other, share catalog and styles among themselves. And we take care of all the service requirements that are required to run an online store. That includes content, fulfillment, payment, customer support.
Okay, interesting. So I think I can see a lot of questions coming in from the audience. So let me bring in a very, very interesting question. I think this is something which we discussed in the start also. Somebody has asked that this has been a very engaging session. I have one question to ask. Which segment would produce the next unicorn in India? Okay. So I'm leaving it open to you guys. Please chip in. Whoever want to answer this question from your segment side.
I think potentially all of the segments can become as in, yeah.
So basically, what you're saying is on the media tech, definitely we can see some unicorns coming in, right?
The media tech definitely, as in simplifying that, companies that will provide a lot of value to other people to make their business or creation more effective will get there. So if we are the company that will enable a lot of writers, thinkers, influencers in the writing space to be able to help them do something better, we could be, I'm sure, Nikhil could do that with with fashion designers and home base, and Kunal could do that with his retail tech, and Santosh, and everyone's a very interesting space of the segments. Each segment can really become. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
Go on, Santosh.
Yeah. So I think yes. I would say anything which is has consumer centric. At the same time, anyone who is actually helping businesses at a largest level, at least when it comes to automation, like RPA platforms are coming up, right? Though there are like big gains like UiPath and Automation Anywhere. I think there is a huge scope in business automation. I still believe so. I think that is definitely a space that would see significant growth, right? So I think yes, and I think it's going to be a SaaS is what I believe, because that's where I see a lot of growth in terms of where businesses adopting because of the low cost and a quick setup, right? So that's my opinion. Yeah.
Again, definitely, I would like to add on to what Santosh said, coming from the same industry. I think when I saw the recent report from McKinsey, there are around 12 unicorns in the B2B SaaS play, and they're like almost 2030, but the total revenue was $10 billion in India. I was like, wow, I'm talking about the revenue piece. And that they're saying that because they're not catering to the Indian market, they're all catering to the global market. 80% of the revenues are coming from global. I think 20 years back when we were growing up, that IT industry was a outsourcing phenomena. Now it's happening differently, right? We're building it here and building it for India as well as for the global. That's where I definitely can see a lot of trend from a B2B SaaS, because once you are into that space and you have the right offering from a value proposition as well as the making sure from a price points, the market opens globally for you. Then the TAM is like huge. So it's not a surprise that we will see those unicorns. Yesterday, Dhruva became a $2 billion company. So it's just a matter of time. A lot of B2B SaaS companies will be coming. Yeah, Shashank.
No, I just thought I'd add one perspective with it and just building on maybe what Kunal was alluding to earlier on in terms of just the whole space we are operating in retail, or just more broadly commerce. Even now, despite almost, if I remember the numbers, about 40-45% increase year on year on just doing transactional work in India. Even then, the urban internet users leveraging shopping, for example, is still only 43% of the internet users. So it's not like we have reached this stage where we have this major penetration of, first of all, internet users, and second, people adopting that as a platform as yet, right? So I think first of all, a broader question to our audience question on which sectors. I do think every sector still has got a lot of. I think we're just scratching the surface. One of the places which is beginning to pique my interest a little bit is just more broadly energy, and how we see that playing out over the coming years, given the general goals of getting to about carbon emission free by about 2050 globally. It essentially means that you need to bring out carbon emissions at about a 50 billion level, and which will mean that essentially all countries and governments have to start now if we need to meet that goal of a carbon-free level, emission-free level rather. I won't use the word carbon-free, but rather emission-free by the end of 2050, which essentially comes back to what is going to happen today in terms of today. And that, I think, is a very interesting space. I mean, I begin to see some of this happening in the travel space with electric vehicles and stuff like that, and that, I think, will again be a big technological disruption, is my sense. Over the coming years, it's an interesting space to watch out for. It's something that is capturing a lot of my interest, definitely, which is completely different from all that we spoke about today. But I think it's a very interesting space that we should watch out for.
I think good point, Shashank. Even yesterday, Infosys has announced a partnership with BP just to boost the energy conservation. Yesterday only, I saw the announcement.
Exactly.
So Good. Interesting. Any other thoughts?
Well, I actually agree with what Swaroop as well has said, because all of us here, driving in this digital space have a huge potential. I mean, these sectors are, catering to consumer demand, which is growing exponentially, right? So, for example, let me just take, fashion as a business. It's a $3 trillion business globally, right? And, we've not even seen the beginning of this. So there's a long way to go. So companies in, this growing economy, I think they are there in this space to are potential unicorns here.
Cool. Okay. Moving on to the next question. I think there are two questions I have seen in the media tech industry. So I'll address that to Shashank and Sarup. Because of pandemic, consumers have increased their online purchases and digital consumption through OTT platforms. Do you think that this increased adoption of digital platforms would persist after the pandemic? That is number one. And second thing is, what are the roadblocks that you guys see for the digital adoption and consumption in India? So obviously one roadblock COVID has removed, but what are other roadblocks that you guys see in this industry?
Okay, let me just begin with the OTT question first. I don't see the subscription economy kind of shrinking post-pandemic, because not only is it the part of question, is the part of the content, but two more factors, right? OTT is easier to consume, right? You can pause, you can come back to something. All that opportunity doesn't happen on live TV per se, right? So it gives you the freedom of not tying up your time to watch something or be live at something. Second part, the plethora of content that you get, which you were getting at the movie theaters or your TV, all of that is also there on OTT. So OTT is kind of becoming an aggregator of media with a lot of more digitization for easier consumption. You're actually paying not only for the content, but the method of consumption as well, both of them together. Yeah. So I don't see it dropping. I see it growing much faster.
Shashank?
Yeah, I'll just second that, Udit. And it just comes back to first principles always, right? Like, why is somebody actually getting on to these platforms, right? And our research very clearly calls out that it is, obviously there's an entertainment component, there's no doubt, and there are categories within that. But even just more broadly, consumption of content is also very heavily skewed towards education, towards inspiration, or just happiness quotient, as I spoke about before. And if you're able to get that in a very almost like a capsule way, right up to the point before around, hey, it's easier to consume at your convenience, etc. It will not drop. And maybe another data point, if that's helpful for the user who's asking the question, is we asked a reverse question to some of our users, and we said, hey, what if YouTube? Who would miss YouTube if we pull that off, for example? And we actually found 61% of the audience who said that, hey, we don't do that, actually came from the millennials and the Generation Z, as they call it, right? So there you go. You have a very clear correlation between this group, which is growing up on these platforms. So if anything, I do think it will only be consumed more and better. But having said that, I think the relevance of it and how can we as all of us, for example, on this call who are directly or indirectly contributing to it as thought leaders or owners ourselves, is how do we ensure that it becomes increasingly easy, less cluttered, and we get it to that user in the way it is very simple, which is one of the reasons why products like YouTube, etc., take off very well. It's simply because of the simplicity of the user. So how do we make that happen? I think will be a challenge going forward, but I think it'll get solved as we go along.
I think that was interesting to know about it. 61%. I was expecting 80% at least. Anyway, so Shashank, I think I would like to add one more thing from my side. When I saw the recent report on the digital media side, I think in India, although we talk about OTT free play, but we already have 29 million paid subscribers and 53 million subscription as of now in India, which was somewhere always we used to talk about a single digit, right? So we have 53 million paid subscription right now sitting in this country, and it is expected to become 70 million paid subscription by next year. I think just to add a little bit from my side on the roadblocks piece, because there's something which we are working on as part of my current role in Cisco. I think one definitely roadblock is the internet penetration in this country. But I think let's be real on the rural side of things. I think we all talk about India 1, India 2, and India 3. I think India 1 and 2 is, I think, almost penetrated. India 3 is still remaining, which is primarily the rural part of it. So we are working on some initiatives at Cisco with with the government and the CSC and the BharatNet to make sure that how we can get the last mile connectivity in the villages. And we did a pilot recently, and you guys will, I think Shashank, you will love it. We saw a trend. We took some villages and then we offered a free connectivity too. There was one gentleman who was on internet from 6 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the night. Okay. And when we saw the trend, 88% of the time was on YouTube. Okay. That's how it was. Right.
I
So,
love the position.
so that's how it is. But I think just to add on, just to make sure that these roadblocks were on the internet side, which I think government and the private bodies are coming together. And the other piece I would like to tell you about one interesting company which is doing a great work, although it has been acquired by Z Group now. There's a startup named Sugarbox. Okay. What they are doing is that they're working on an offline CDN. Okay.
Yeah.
So it will work very well in the rural settings. So imagine you have a limited backhaul bandwidth, right? And then you put a Sugarbox CDN box of like offline CDN. You will make sure that all the content which are being relayed from OTT players that are available, right, as like a cache there. Then all these villagers can consume that content without really paying for the extra bandwidth that they need. That is a model that we are exploring with them. And the second piece which they are doing is just an FYI for all of you. Once the COVID ends, they have already won the contract from the Indian government for the deploying their solution in each train in India. So now going forward, what we experience in our in aeroplanes, right? The planes, the same thing we'll experience in any train of India, be it a typical intercity or a Shatabdi or Rajdhani. Every train you will have that content. So you can see a lot of initiative which will help to address these roadblocks. So
yeah, we had a similar, not exactly a similar experience with it, but one of the programs you probably would have heard about that Google ran in India was the Internet Sati program, which was a beautiful program, right? I mean, it basically got, essentially in rural areas, you kind of built influencers and leverage them to get a lot of people online. And it fundamentally, again, changed the way people were consuming content in the rural level, right? And it helped in education, of course. It helped in, sponsoring anything specific that needed to be driven in the rural spaces. So I think in India, my learning over multiple years has been it is about how you remove roadblocks, to your point, and make it easier. But the response that comes from people adopting is phenomenal, right? And I think in 2001 or 2002, ITC had started this entire concept of e-Chopal.
Yeah.
And I remember going into about a village about 50 kilometers from Bhopal, and I had set up one of the early e-Chopals in the country. And there was a concept there at that point in time called the Sancharak, who would be the main person, and his or her house would be the places where farmers would go and actually get prices real time through an internet satellite link, and then go to a mandi and actually sell it there, right? And so it removed middlemen directly, and ITC controlled that. Of course, that's gotten much better now and all of that. But point I'm making is if we find innovative ways in which we remove roadblocks, the uptake of services on our platforms can be phenomenal. So kudos to you and the team in Cisco for really thinking through this very well.
Udit, a question to you actually. In the roadblock part, how do you think devices are how much of a roadblock? Because whenever we speak of roadblock, we continually speak of broadband. When I think of it in content viewing, there are two methods of content viewing. One is individualized viewing, where your cell phone comes handy, right? So YouTube is very individualized viewing to that extent. Vis-a-vis, there is a whole phenomena of group viewing, which is going to a theater, watching some sport, etc., which people do in groups, right? Where a smart TV becomes far more convenient to view instead of watching it on a lot of handheld devices. Does device become a roadblock? It's more of a question. I don't have an input on it.
It is, Sarup, but I think we are not the company who's solving it. Shashank is there anyway. So you know that the partnership that Google had with Jio, right? So they're coming up with those kind of phones. So if you think about it, right, a couple of years back, the first wave of digital happened in India when smartphones became somewhere close to 20,000 rupees. Okay,
Yes.
that's the first 100 million came. And the next wave came when this 20,000 became 10,000. Okay, then you got another 200, 300 million. And And the next wave came when this became 7 to 8,000 or 5,000, 10,000, which is the current status. I would say that for the next 500 million users, you need somewhere around 2,000 or 3,000 bucks, which is what I think. I don't know the actual price, but that's what Jio and their partnerships are aiming for. So I think I would not be surprised that just
Yeah, of course.
in the next
yeah.
1
Maybe I can add just one perspective, Swaroop, to that. It's a great point you're making, and part of how we think about this in Google is the entire convergence of the hardware with the services at the most optimum value for an end user, right? So if you think about the entire ecosystem today, right, which obviously being part of Google, I will talk about Google, but just more broadly speaking, I think it's how we are able to your point, how do you bring it in the smallest form factor, right, in the most convenient way, where all these platforms or services get converged, which is where Jio is playing that role, and we are partnering with them. And if you think about Android as an ecosystem, which brings all of this together, and you bundle it with a hardware, and you bundle it with a good, subscription model from a telecom side, you have a good, end-to-end kind of convergence happening. And I think that's the, I suppose, more medium to longer term vision to go for.
I think it's a matter of time. I think
It's a matter of time. Absolutely.
And I just want to add one more point. I think to solve these people being vernacular is definitely the more important point. It could be content, right, for any business to have. I think one of the use cases that we're helping is like Care India and Tele Arogya and Nimhas, which is actually a mental health company. So we have built bots to help the nurses who are coming from the rural, to help them with all the frequently asked questions. And I think we got a really good appreciation from the team. So I think that being vernacular, especially we are serving in a very local language too. So that is also, I think, point to be noted by businesses to reach these type 2, type 3 and other villages as well. You need to start creating content in their own language too.
I completely agree, Santosh, because we don't have more than 150 million people who speak English. So I think there's no doubt about it. That's all. But I think great point. So I think moving on to the next question, which is in a different space, from Nikhil. Which technology would have larger contributions towards digitizing the retail tech space, mobile-based or computer-based?
That's a nice question, because what we're trying to see here is what is the next screen size that people are looking at, right? So that's very important here, because I understand that mobiles are fighting over different screen sizes, even if it's half an inch or 1 inch. But slowly there is another factor growing, is smart TV. With the rise of OTT and with the rise of a lot of these apps trying to promote content on smart TV. And of course, there are a lot of initiatives now on smart TV prices also coming down, though this is recently launched. So I think the future of commerce will also be on the larger screens. People would love to have better views. People would love to shop at the comfort of their home, and also engage time, on the television. So I mean, my sense would be, the next 5 years to 10 years, smart TVs would be like a great aid for these SMBs trying to reach out to customers. Because it's not just a national thing, but I think globally that's on the rise. And I'd probably back anyone, trying to get on the growth curve right now for it.
So I think, Nikhil, I would have a follow-up question on this part. There's something, this space which I am very interested in, the smart TV space, right? And I strongly feel, I completely agree with you, but that's where everything will converge. So it's all about 1 billion screens in this country. It's not about smartphones. It's all, if you add it up, right, we are still not 1 billion, right? We have somewhere around 200 million TVs, and then we have 600 million smartphones. So we're talking about 800, 900 million screens. Now, although smart TVs are doing well from a purchase or sale perspective, right? But the adoption of smart TV has not picked up that much in India, right? We're talking about, I think under 10 million, if I'm not wrong, 10 to 15 million smart TVs in this country compared to the overall population, right? And the biggest roadblock for smart TVs, what we are seeing is the broadband penetration.
Yes.
I think one is the mobile broadband has picked up, right? But if you want to have a smart TV working, then you need to have a typical broadband available, wireline broadband, which is, I think, has picked up in the COVID times. Now we have, I think, close to 20 million broadband users. So I think that is also one ceiling which is stopping it. So
Yes.
if 20 million will not increase to 50 million, smart TV, even if you sell to 40 million, that's what I feel. But maybe I would love to see your comment on that.
No, I really believe that because I think there should be a greater investment in terms of triple play infrastructure, right? So that's what will improve connectivity. And once we start, getting this through the tier 1 cities, then we've also seen tier 2 adoption is very, very quick once tier 1 has scaled up. So I think my sense is telecom needs to invest a lot in providing that bit of connectivity. And at the same time, there are a lot of content players, there are a lot of brands trying to go digital, and then an easy access from a mobile to a watch or to a TV. I think that's going to give them that customer 360, and that's what even customers are waiting for. But there is, as you said, a ceiling, and which clearly is today infrastructure roadblocks.
I think the way things are happening, definitely it's improving. But yeah, that is definitely one roadblock I can see for sure. Okay. So let's say I think we have 5 minutes remaining. So I'll just go to the last question from our side. What challenges that you guys have seen being an investor or being a founder in the last, I would say, 1.5 years, and what are your experiences in the last 1.5 years, and what do you guys think, whatever things you have done that will help you to scale up in future? And I think it's up to you also, Shashank, as an investor. How are you seeing as an investment philosophy changing in these times?
Maybe I can go last this time, Udit. Let's hear from the founders. I think they faced a lot more challenges than you and me as investors right now to scale up their businesses. So let's kick it off with the founders today.
Okay, then let me go first. In the last 1.5 years was a very odd time span. Were you wanting to talk about the pandemic months? Yeah. Okay. So for the last year, how it has been is that part of the lockdown and all of a sudden everybody working from home. The initial challenges were only at two ends for us. One is we have some warehousing for paperback products that is one tail end of the business. So that kind of got a little shocker when the bookstores closed and the offline guys closed. For some part of the team, working from home was a possibility. But there is one part of the team, that doesn't have, in Mumbai especially, the houses are not very large, and if there are too many family members inside, working from home became a challenge for some people. So yeah, but gradually I think everybody adapted. Our business is very aligned to working from home, so was not very large difference for us.
Okay.
I think it's quite ironic from our side, because I think it's a fabulous year for chatbots. I think especially the people who are in automation, because that's becoming a need of the hour. And to be surprised, I mean, we've seen 100% growth in our financial, 2020, right? So that's been a boon for us. And then we've scaled our team members also almost like 3 times. So we've seen businesses, of course, there are, since it's an SaaS, so some subscription has been halted again, because especially the travel, the customers has been seen the travel and education seen significant impact. But I think there are upcoming technology, especially the WhatsApp actually seen a lot for growth, WhatsApp chatbots, because now small to medium and large companies are adopting WhatsApp as one of the channels. So we've seen significant growth there. So overall, I think it's really a blossom year for us.
Okay, good.
Well, the pandemic was never good for most people, and lives lost, jobs lost, and economy came down quite bad. But then what we also sensed was an opportunity where we can start working with these MSMEs and the SMB boutique brands and the small businesses, right? And giving them an instant digital platform. So, at least they could make their ends meet, right? That was the most important thing for us. And what we've seen that over the last 12 months, there has been like a 5x increase in the number of brands who came onto the 6degree platform to scale their business. And most of them have actually at least been able to cover their costs. And I think as what we could do as a give back for that sector, I think it was pretty heartening for us to see this happen. And we just hope that things can get back on track quite quickly.
Hey, Adit, I'll just give my experience. I'll share my experience. So I know it's very hard for startups to be remotely based. You need intense collaboration. But however, our startup started during the COVID. So we've been flexible around timings. Coming to office is optional on most days. What we've done is we've kind of seamlessly adapted to tools like Flock. It's very similar to Slack. And I don't think I've done a startup early as well. I don't think that would have been possible if things were normal. From operations point of view, we are a cross-border company. We've gone ahead and negotiated deals with our suppliers to forward deploy the inventory. And initially we had planned to use dropship model. So a few things have changed from a model point of view as well. And it's continuously evolving. So it's a very interesting time to be in. Yeah, and we are evolving as we go along.
I think one thing I know that these times will bring a lot of efficiencies in the way we operate, and this will be there in the future also. It will always make us better. Okay, moving on to others. Swaroop, I think is done. Yeah, I think it's Shashank only now. Looks like.
Yeah, maybe I can give a quick, I know we are almost on time, but maybe just one thing. First of all, I think it's just great to see how our founders on the call and many others like them have really been resilient through these times. So huge kudos on that one, to start with. I think as an investor, I did see a little bit of a slack at my end during last year, because quite honestly, the attention went a lot more internally, to stuff that we were kind of working on ourselves. And I think the second one, which is not something I struggle with, but something I would want to get better at, is like, what are the rubrics we can evolve to understand progress in specific sectors and of startups, right? And of what is a right way to understand progress, and what's the right way to intervene and support, if possible, as an investor, and what should be the rubric that you put in place to make some of these decisions. I think that at least for me personally, that's a little bit hazy. Maybe for people who are a little bit more deeper in the ecosystem, it's better off. But I think I have some journey to go on that one. But I think on the flip side, the positive side is, for me personally, it's been a great journey in education over the last 2 years, right? Of actually almost 3 years now, but definitely over the last couple of years. Of just seeing what the opportunities are, the headroom available, the way technology is being leveraged to solve complex problems. I think it's very, very encouraging and very, very inspiring. And I personally feel like we've just kicked it off. I just feel like we've not even probably 1/5 or 1/10 of where we can get to. It's far more to go. So I'm very bullish about what is going to go ahead. I do think this year has been hard. There's no doubt about it. And maybe it will for a few more quarters, but post that, I think we'll be in a great place. And I think India will be, like you said, probably hitting 50 odd unicorns very soon, right? So
can't agree more, Shashank.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we are already on top of the hour.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for your wonderful insights. I'm sure the audience would have loved it, the kind of insight that you guys have shared. I think some takeaways that I am taking from this discussion is, one is, I'm sure, happiness quotient from Shashank on the Google side of things. I love the story of the 24-year-old boy writing stories in Nagpur. Okay, and he got a big contract. I love that use case of Santosh Mahindra drivers, the invoicing thing, right? So very, very simple and the practical problem, and that they solved it through WhatsApp. And Nikhil, Haryana lady selling salwar kameez globally. And I think that's great to see that. I'm good to hear about the content that is going to be available in trains also going forward, irrespective of the kind of strata that you come from. You can consume all those contents in the trains also. And I think we also discussed about some roadblocks and the challenges that we have seen in the digital consumption. So overall, thanks a lot. Thank you everyone for a wonderful session. And thanks a lot, audience, for being patient with us. Thank you.
And thank you, Udit, for hosting so wonderfully.
Thank you.
Thank you, Udit.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Good day. Bye.